Hello, and we welcome to. Okay, I already messed it up. Welcome to the 11th episode of Sketchy Talk, and today we have Amanda Makepeace. Amanda Makepeace has been an independent artist and part-time illustrator since 2005. Her work has appeared on the covers of both fiction and nonfiction books, in several Emmy Award-winning games, and in genre magazines like Amazing Stories and Fireside Fiction. She has won 2 Chesley Awards for Best Cover of Paperback/ebook, and most recently, she was featured in an officially licensed Hannibal art book from Printed in Blood. Through her art, she explores the themes of nature, dark folklore, and our connection to the planet. When she's not in the studio or traveling to events, she can be found reconnecting with nature and the woods that inspired her as a child. So, welcome, Amanda. It's so great to see you here.
It's great to be here.
That's one reason I thought you would be great for this, because we talk a lot about sketching and you do so much nature. Do you do nature journaling too, or is it mostly sort of observations from nature and more of a graphite long form?
It's a lot of it is more long form, but I actually just bought some sketchbooks, some small sketchbooks this week to take with me when I go hiking.
Oh,
Um
nice.
I do a little bit of that, but yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that sketches on like just sheets of paper everywhere.
Hmm.
I'm really bad about that. I've always been bad about keeping actual sketchbooks. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm always drawing.
Hmm.
I love drawing, but I love just having that single piece of paper in my hand. But you end up with piles of them everywhere.
Exactly. So, what type of do you have a type of paper you prefer when you do your sketches? Like, this is very similar to, we were just talking to Tom Miller a couple weeks ago, and he also similarly uses like copier paper or something like that and just sketches on that.
It really varies. So, I guess as the full picture, because yes, I do work in large graphite drawings. I'll use really nice Arches hot press watercolor paper for that. But the sketchbooks that I bought this week to take with me on my little walks are just small Strathmore drawing paper. It's pretty thin, but yeah, I mean, like I grew up drawing on printer paper, a lot. It was handy.
Hmm.
I still do that. I like having that paper. But I'll draw on anything.
Hmm.
I love paper.
Hmm.
I have so much paper. In fact, I just bought a new pad of Arches drawing paper.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. I guess I didn't realize they made drawing. I think of them mostly for watercolor.
exactly. And in fact, somebody commented that same exact thing on social media earlier. I was doing some Googling on BFK Reeves paper, and I guess that's made by Arches.
Oh.
And I did not know that. And so the Arches has they have a whole page about it, and the
Hmm.
deckled edges and beautiful paper. And they have 2 sizes of pads for this basically the same paper, just without the deckled edge. So
Nice.
yeah, I know I'm really excited to actually use some of it, and I might even cut some of it up and take with me.
Hmm.
Um, because I do love sketching the things that I find.
Hmm.
Um, sometimes sometimes those are things that go into larger drawings, you
Hmm.
know. Um, but sometimes it's just a matter of recording. I enjoy recording what I see,
Hmm.
you
And I
know.
think that's what a lot of people like to do in their sketchbooks. And
Yeah,
obviously, me being an urban sketcher, that's the whole point of their manifesto, is to show the world through drawing.
right.
And so that's kind of, you're doing it a little bit more like you're more macro than, or sort of micro than macro,
Yes.
sorry. Because
Yes.
you're looking at the small world rather than the
Yes.
big
Yes.
cityscapes or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good way of describing it. And in fact, I think I used to have a website tagline years ago about something about,
Mhm. Mhm.
looking down at the world at your feet.
Mhm.
And I do enjoy finding the things that we overlook.
Mhm.
that we don't even notice sometimes, and bringing those to the forefront, whether it's a sketch or, like a big still life drawing I've put together.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know, there's magic there, I guess.
Definitely, there is. Let's backtrack a little bit and, talk a little bit about how you came to your practice and how you started drawing and illustrating. What kind of was your journey?
Well, I was definitely one of those kids that, was always drawing. And my mother, while she's not really a practicing artist, she is an artist in her heart. And, when I was a child, I would love asking her to draw my toys. So, I was one of those kids. I always loved the outdoors. I was always outside playing. I loved collecting rocks. Even then, I loved doing basically everything I'm doing now. And
Mhm.
I loved dinosaurs and horses, and I used to have her draw them. And I thought that that was magic. Like actually seeing her recreate these things with a pencil on paper. And I wanted to do it. And I guess it was that initial decision that I wanted to do this too. Um, that basically was the first domino that fell, and I never stopped. Um, my first and I explored a lot of different mediums, obviously, besides pencil. I don't have a degree in art. I actually have a degree in anthropology.
Well, that's great.
Yes.
That's actually seems to be. I know a lot of people that have degrees in anthropology and then do art. I don't know, is there
Yeah.
a connection there? Is it just an interest in
Um,
the
I think it was just an interest. I was an art major for about a year, and so I do have a little bit of, like, those introductory, drawing, but,
Mhm,
the thing is by the time I had gotten to college, I had been drawing every day.
mhm,
I was already exploring watercolors and acrylics, and, kinda had it was set in my own way, and so it was I think other artists probably can identify with this, maybe. I don't know. I had trouble finding my place in the art department. I
mhm,
was I didn't want somebody molding me. I was already on my path.
mhm,
And so it was, yeah, I knew very early on that it was not working. There was just no way I was going to be able to stick it out in the art department. And so I just yeah, I knew that I wanted to continue making art. There was no
mhm,
question about that, but I was gonna get a degree in something else, and I've always had a lot of interest. So anthropology was just one of several choices because it could have been geology.
mhm.
I took a lot of geology courses, and in fact, I took geology courses under my anthropology.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, as well as archaeology. And so I've always, you can kind of probably guess since you've seen some of my work. Yes, I love stones. I love bones.
Mhm,
All of those things. And, I got a taste of all of that under, my undergrad with anthropology and archaeology and geology. Um, and then after that, I I ended up in the UK.
mhm,
And, a friend of my then husband, he was um, a basically, I'm trying to think of what the word is. I think he did teach at King's College at one point, but he worked in, Python, software stuff, languages,
mhm,
coding.
mhm, mhm,
And, he asked if I would do a cover for a book called Developing Java Software.
mhm.
And that was published through Wiley and Sons. And that ended up being my first book cover illustration.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, and it was, basically oak leaves in acrylics. And because there's some evidently, I don't know, something with Java and acorns, and I don't know.
Mhm.
He explained it to me at the time, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do this.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
um, yeah, and that was in 2005. So it's interesting. I've I've had many different paths within this one path.
Mhm.
Um, So, for a while I was working in acrylics, and that was that book cover. When I came back to the US, I actually was still working in acrylics, but then started working in watercolors more. I really wasn't touching pencils a whole lot except for sketching.
Mhm.
It was my sketching medium. I was doing work in all kinds of other stuff and digital, and then I started exploring like fantasy and science fiction and went down that path. So it's kind of interesting the route that I've taken. I have people that know me for very different art themes.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm definitely not one of those artists that has just done one thing and stayed on that path. I've done a lot of different stuff, and now I'm moving into a new phase. In 20, I guess it was the end of 2019. I decided I had been doing, some graphite work here and there, and I decided that I really wanted to do more of that.
Mhm.
I wanted to focus on that, honestly. And so I revived my Patreon and, set it up completely for just pencil art. And I thought, well, I'll just do this on the side, and see how it goes. And then it just consumed me.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, it just consumed me. And so now I feel like in these last 2 years especially, I'm moving into kind of this a next phase of
Mhm.
my creative journey.
Mhm.
And I'm focusing more on art for me and my art business, and it's great to have this kind of this bridge now between basically my first love, which was pencils,
Mhm.
and being inspired by just the magic of what you can do with a pencil and a piece of paper,
Mhm.
and taking that to kind of this next level. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds really exciting. And also, have you experimented with like powdered graphites and that sort of thing? Like, I guess this is a good
I
segue into
have.
what are the tools that you find give you the most satisfactory result when you're
I Yeah,
illustrating that way?
I have got a big tub of powdered graphite over here, and I
Mhm.
do play with it periodically. But I find pencils are just, I don't know, I love them.
Mhm.
I've got all different kinds. In fact, you know, just like, well, any artist, you get questions about, what do you use?
Exactly.
Um,
Everybody are
yeah.
equipment nerds when it comes to
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the short answer is everything. I don't have basically one brand of pencil that I use and that I love.
Mhm.
I have several that kind of I use at different stages of a drawing.
Mhm.
So I have pencils that are just my sketch pencils,
Mhm.
and those are actually a pencil that has been discontinued, and my heart is broken.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're a really wonderful pencil by Stedler
Oh.
that yeah, that it's a woodless graphite. I'm actually trying to
Oh, so it's
find.
like a total it's all graphite then.
It is all graphite. If I can find one, I just want to make sure I get the name right. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, it's Stedler all X-Rite.
Hmm.
And it looks like just kind of a standard HB pencil. It's got an eraser on the end,
Mhm.
but it's woodless, and it is the most divine thing.
Wow.
It's yeah. I actually I did not discover these myself. Greg Ruth
Uh-huh.
who you might be familiar with.
Oh, yes, it does a lot of work in graphite and, monochromatic type pieces.
Yes, I had watched a video, a demo that he did, and he was using these pencils for kind of the early stages of his drawing, and I thought, I'm gonna get some of those, to try, and I fell in love with them, and of course, you fall in love with something so hard, and then it eventually leaves you. So I still have some of these pencils, and they kind of are my first. I love sketching with them. I love doing the underdrawing
Mhm.
for, like, my big pieces with
What
them.
is their feature that's so attractive? Is it the marks you can make? Or I mean, we're not having you do a
It's
demo or anything, which I suppose
No,
would.
no, no. They're very smooth and consistent. So, comparing them to some other, like, woodless graphites that I've used, the other ones I've used, like, what are some, Create-A-Color has some, I think.
Oh, yeah, Cretacolor,
Um
yeah, mhm,
mhm. Those all tend to be kind of very harsh,
mhm.
and these you can get a very, very subtle tone,
Oh, so
and
you can be
it's
super light.
yes, and it's consistent. You can smudge them if you need to, but they're actually, I mean, you can just leave it as is. It's beautiful. It's really hard to describe just the subtle beauty of the marks that it makes. And it's great for sketching. It's great for putting down those first tones.
Mhm.
Um, because with graphite, you're especially like full graphite pieces, you're building up layers just like you would any
All
other
mediums,
medium,
yes.
you know. But yeah, so I use those, and I use black wings.
Mhm. I have
I
a lot
love
of those. I like black wings.
Yeah, I have a lot of black wings. I also use Tombow Mono 100s. I have mechanical pencils that I
Mhm.
use that are great for those fine details, especially with drawing feathers and things like that. I also have some new Mitsubishi. Let's see, they're high uni pencils
Hmm.
they're from Japan. These are brand new. I'm actually planning to give them a test run this afternoon.
Oh,
Uh,
exciting.
Yes, I have, like, a full set that was gifted to me.
Mm.
I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I use a little bit of everything, and just like any art medium, each one kinda has its own purpose
Mhm.
depending on what I'm drawing. Um, I even have an old Prismacolor, H pencil, you know?
So what do you tell to people like me who in I don't tend to work in graphite as a finished medium that often because it in a sketchbook particularly because I carry it in my purse and stuff, it becomes very it smears really badly.
Oh,
In
yeah.
the I mean, I do have some workable fixative, but do you fix your drawings, or do you just put like a sheet of tracing paper between them? Because some people say that using a permanent fix can sometimes change the tones of the drawing too. So,
Yeah, I mean, it can, it kinda depends. So, a lot of my work tends to be, what you would call minimalist,
hmm
So, I'm not working on, like, large sheets where the whole paper is full
hmm
of graphite. So I tend to do fixative. I've not noticed any, like, changes as
hmm
far as, like, the tones, and, I think it's fine.
do you use
But
a workable fixative, or do
I
you have
do.
a
Yeah,
okay?
I use a workable fixative. In fact, what is it? I bought a new one recently, and I don't remember the name of it, but anyway, actually, maybe it's over there. It's just a Krylon workable fixative.
Oh, okay. I have
Um,
the Grumbacher right now. Is
yeah,
are
and
they
I've
pretty
used
close?
They really are. I mean, I honestly have not noticed a lot of differences. I think I've also used Winsor& and Newton in the past.
hmm
They have a workable for graphite charcoal,
hmm
pastels. I think most of them work about the same.
Mhm.
But yeah, but like, my work, it's not, you're not looking at a sheet where basically the whole thing is filled in. It's usually I'm doing these objects.
Mhm.
It tends to be a little bit more, minimal. So I'm not working with graphite on the same level, I guess,
Mhm.
as some others where it might affect the tone. Because I do know what you're talking about. If you have large sections of like, um, deep, intense darks, I think sometimes it can change the
Mhm.
tone of that, on the paper.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I sometimes in my sketchbook will just use pencil, but and sometimes I remember to fix it and sometimes I don't. But when I don't, you can note
yeah,
like when looking through sketchbooks that have, especially when
yeah.
carried around a lot, it gets pretty
It does.
smeary.
I know. Yeah, yeah, it
And it makes
does.
you think, "Oh, I don't wanna work on this as much." And, I do a lot of mixed media, and so
Right,
it's kind of like, well, will the pencil on this smear or will it affect the other stuff that I spray over it? So there's always that tension
right.
when you're
Yeah, a lot of, when I'm taking stuff out to like, sketch on a hike or something, I tend to keep it pretty simple.
Mhm,
I might take, one of my mechanical pencils if I want to kind of get into it a little bit
mhm,
more with those details, but I know that it's gonna smudge in there.
mhm.
So a lot of times I'll take, just a hard pencil or I'll take one of these Stettlers if I want something a little softer that isn't gonna smudge a whole lot.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, but I try to keep it pretty simple because, yeah, I know. Not
mhm.
only that, but it's down in my bag and
Yes. I mean, we all know what happens, and I mean, I always have a ton of pencils and stuff in my purse, and sometimes it can be kind of messy if you have something that's especially graphite. I mean, because I actually probably exclusively now use very cheap wood, except for like occasionally I do use Blackwing pencils too.
Mhm.
But because I do really like the tone and smoothness, but for everyday sketching, most of the time I buy tons of these yellow pencils that are
Yeah.
super cheap, and that's mostly what I sketch in on copier paper when I'm sketching for my books or whatever, or even in my
Yeah.
sketchbook, and I really I mean, even within those, they have a nice amount of tone, and, I have a electric pencil sharpener that makes an especially long point that I love.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Mhm, mhm,
And that's the thing too, if I find that something I'm sketching, like, I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute," maybe I want this to be more. I have no qualms about redrawing something later.
yeah, yeah,
You know? I mean, that's not a problem. So, I think the thing with sketching, you have to be prepared to accept that it is something that might not last.
transitory, totally.
Yes, it's very transitory, and that's okay.
Mhm,
It's okay to create things that maybe aren't that don't have to be masterpieces, and
yes,
that might not be here till the end of time. I mean, if they are, that's great.
uh-huh,
But it doesn't, not everything has to be a finished, work of art.
yes,
Because I think there's a lot of, when you're sketching, you're also kind of exploring
mhm.
and learning. And I think I mean, that never grows old, I guess.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I don't know. Where one of the things I tell a lot of young artists is that you're always going to be learning.
Mhm, mhm. That's good advice.
You're always going to be learning, and that's okay. You just, I feel like with everything that I draw, whether it's a sketch or a finished piece, there's something I've learned.
Mhm.
And so yeah, just draw.
And I mean, I'm always experimenting with different materials and trying new things, and, I don't use the same technique even between book to book, sometimes I'll
Right.
use acrylic, sometimes I use watercolor. This latest one I'm using gouache because I have been having fun with it. I
Mhm.
mean, it really is whatever you feel like, and I think if you get too in a rut, it makes it less enjoyable for you when you're not
Yes. Well, at
experimenting with
least
different.
yeah, at least for some people, I there are those that, they find that one thing
And they love it.
and they love it, and I think that's great. But I tell people that if that's not you, that's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay to do many things and explore and evolve. I mean, I think about all the artists through history that changed, that changed completely.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
I mean, there's plenty of them. Matisse was one.
Mhm.
Throughout their lifetime, they didn't do just one thing forever.
Yeah, most artists, I think, it's a journey.
Right.
It's not you're not stuck in one special lot in time. You keep moving forward in the way you do things and the way you take things in. As you get
Right.
older, you take in things differently, you experience the world differently, and so it's not possible to do the same thing all the time, I don't think. I mean, you could try, but I think that there's
Yeah.
something, and I don't even know if evolving might be a better word than growing, because it's a constantly it's a moving,
Mhm.
it's constantly moving,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
a static thing. And I think
Right.
that's kind of exciting. I mean, I like to see, people as they evolve what they do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that they're actually, and this might be an illustration thing, I think a lot of times there's more focus on getting better than focus on, is this achieving what I want it to do? Is this what I want it to be?
Right. Yes. Yes, definitely. And, it's I don't know. I enjoy, if I see like a new thing out, I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I want to try that," you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm always buying, different pencils,
Hmm.
different tools, different erasers, different papers. I'm looking at, different techniques that I might see and I'm like, you know, could I do something like that? Could I explore that?
Hmm.
And some things, I leave behind because, it didn't work.
Mhm, and that's okay too. It's
Yeah,
interesting because I see a lot of people now doing a lot in traditional materials, and it's interesting that you said that that pencil is no longer made, because there are a lot of art materials that are no longer being manufactured. Certain types of acrylics, for example, they've stopped making. A lot of different papers have gone away. I wonder if you're gonna see a resurgence of some of these materials as more people are taking to traditional materials again.
I think that's entirely possible, and and not that I wanna talk about AI. Um
It's the elephant in the room.
Well, it really is, but, I do think that we're going to see maybe possibly even more of a resurgence in traditional media because of that,
Mhm,
as a
mhm.
response to. Yeah, I think that's very likely
Kind
because
of like
things.
abstract art came from photography.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we as human beings respond to things that are happening in our world, and, there's typical responses, and we've seen them
Mhm,
again and again through history, and so, yeah, I do think that we're gonna see more of that, and I would love to see a resurgence in art supply stores. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have one. I have one here in Athens, and I'm not talking like big chain. I'm talking about just like the brick and mortar bookstores that kind of had a
exactly, it's very
resurgence.
analogous.
Yes, so I would love to see more of that.
And I think AI will probably become a thing for commercial art, but I think it will
Mhm.
be in the pantheon of, the artwork that you see, like, that a lot of these big corporations use, that sort of stylized people drawing. Does anyone
Right.
really wanna draw that stuff? I mean, I no offense to those that do, because there are some people that
No.
probably think it's very lovely to draw that stuff. But there's sort
Yeah.
of been this. I almost think it's an iconography style illustration,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
stuff like that. I could see that's probably going to go away as far as hiring a lot of individual artists to do that,
Oh, well, yeah. I
and
mean,
possibly has
it's
already. It's stock art and that sort of thing.
right. And I mean, it's bound to though, because we see trends. I mean, just talking about illustration. I mean, we see trends
Hmm.
in illustration, in the types of book covers that are being made
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
type of editorial illustrations that become popular.
Mhm.
Things come and they go. Um,
Exactly. And
yeah,
I remember, and actually, it was funny. I was watching a podcast about illustration very recently, and they were talking about the freak out that happened over stock art. And this was
yeah,
probably in the early 2000s. And they were like, it's the end of illustration as we know it. You know, publishers are going to buy, and it didn't happen. I
right,
mean, stock
right,
art's there, but it didn't
yeah,
materialize in the same way. And I kind of view AI the same way. The only thing that I find very offensive about AI is using people's artwork to create, like, where you,
yes,
I mean, that's a
yes,
bad thing, where it's like actually
yes,
stealing people's work to, make something new. Artists have been fighting
yes,
for that since, you know, I think a few years ago, Wizards of the Coast was trying to make new cards by combining art from old ones, and they stopped that. Am I remembering
yeah.
that correctly? That did happen. Okay.
That did happen. Yes,
And
yes.
people were not happy about it, and they were able to put a stop to it. And I look at this almost as in the same thing.
Yeah, there are, as far as AI goes, there are big concerns.
Exactly.
And I don't diminish anybody's concerns and fears over it because, yeah, it's could affect publishing jobs. And it may.
It already
And
has.
and
I
it
mean,
already
Tor
has.
just
Right.
published one.
Right. But I do think, yeah, I mean, you have to make a fuss, and I do think that this isn't forever.
No.
I mean, yes, this is something that all artists should be concerned about, and we should make our voices heard about it. But my advice would be to try not to let it consume your creative heart,
Exactly.
because this will pass,
Uh-huh.
and you keep making art. Because that's something I've been seeing a lot of, and I know people are frustrated, and I understand that.
Mhm.
They're, I mean, the world around us is difficult.
Mhm.
And so this is just another thing on top of everything else, and I see artists truly feeling depressed about the outlook
Well,
of
frankly, the styles that it, like, you look at Midjourney, the styles that it's emulating to hand paint take a long time, and it
yeah,
is not
yeah,
easy to work in those styles a lot of times. They're
right.
very time consuming
No,
and stuff.
no.
And so I can understand why there's such extreme fear from that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's valid.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I really do think it is, but my advice in that is, just keep pushing forward.
Exactly.
Don't stop making art. Keep going, because, yes, this sucks, but we will get through it.
Well, it's interesting because I have a friend that is very much into AI, and he sent me a book that he'd worked on, and he is a traditional artist, and he was like, "This is really amazing." He said, "If you could," and he said, "Like, with your sketches, you could do these." And I said, "Well, I don't think you understand why I do them." I said, "I don't do them for the end
Right,
result. I mean, there
right.
is a whole method of art that you're
Yes.
not. It's not the end result that you're working for. It's the
Right,
process that
right.
and the process of observing and being in your environment and drawing and
Yes.
mindfulness that you get from that, that's different from, like, the finished piece. Yeah, it might be nice, but it's
Yeah.
not what that it's
Well,
not the point."
exactly, because, I mean, when I made the decision to return to working in pencil,
Mhm.
and then even then made the decision after that, "Oh, okay, I'm really actually going to focus on this all the
Mhm.
time." The driving force behind that was that I wanted something tangible.
Mhm.
I wanted an organic medium that I felt connected to, and that I felt also connected me to what I was drawing and sketching
Mhm.
and the world around me. And before then, I had been mostly working in digital,
Mhm.
and it just wasn't fulfilling for me anymore. I needed something else. And that's not, I mean, I love digital art. I love
Oh,
it.
me
And I
too.
love,
I work digitally
yeah,
a lot as well.
Yeah, and I love the pieces that I made during those years, but, I needed I can't imagine. Yeah, I just it makes me laugh a little bit. I can't imagine using AI to create a pencil drawing because, like, the whole point is I wanna hold the pencil.
Exactly, you enjoy the process, you enjoy the feel of the materials, you enjoy and,
Right.
one thing that and as much as I love working digitally and the results can be really amazing, there is still, like, when you're painting, there is still some aspect of accident that happens when you're painting that can't
Yes.
happen digitally quite the same way. I don't know how to describe it. Sometimes the way the physics of the paint work are not a
Yeah.
way you would have ever been able, and I think it's because it's, and maybe the math will eventually get there, but you know how you will blop stuff on your I mean, even the
Yes.
accidents, I mean, that's why they're called accidents, is like you spill something
Yes.
on your sketchbook or something. Sometimes that makes it better than it was.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's what I love about watercolor,
Mhm.
there's a spontaneousness to it
Mhm.
that is you can guess because when you've been working in that medium long enough, you kind of know what it might do if you do this and
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
add a little bit more water, this, that, but there's still this element of unknown,
Exactly.
and you have to adapt to it and go with it, whatever it gives you.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's something really exciting about that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of materials that have that. I mean, all of them have their own unpredictable aspects of them. And I think that that's where the excitement lies. And, like with graphite, there's different types of, whether you're using powdered graphite or different types of,
Mhm.
like, whatever the mix is, will give you something slightly different.
Oh,
And,
yeah, definitely. Well, especially with powdered graphite.
mhm,
I haven't used that quite as much, but there is and maybe because I don't have as much experience with it. So, like with watercolor, I painted in watercolors for years,
mhm,
and I kind of know, I've done enough of it that I kind of know what will happen here and there.
mhm.
But powdered graphite is still a little bit of an unknown.
Mm.
And
And
it's
it's
like
a leap of faith when you put it on your drawing, because it's like, is it gonna ruin it or
exactly. Yes, there's no going back. Well, there's starting over, and I have done that. I have done that a few times. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with I like sketching in ink as well,
Mhm,
even if it's just pen. But especially with, brush, there's yeah, it's
but
what's
yeah,
gonna
there's a little bit of
happen.
predictability to that too. Do you ever use
Yeah.
fountain pens? I'm thinking about, like, experimenting with them.
I have not, no. I actually played with calligraphy years and years ago, but I never used it for drawing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yes,
And
I have to figure out what would be a good one to start with, like a good starter fountain pen.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, that would be fun. And there is some unpredictability to that,
Mhm,
because of the pressure that you apply to the paper
mhm.
with the pen, and yeah.
Yeah,
that-
it's definitely something worth trying out. And so you said your process when you're working on is you kind of, so you start with your Stadler and then
Mhm.
you kind of work your way with the black wings, or are they, what is your regular?
Yeah, it kinda depends. It does depend on what I'm drawing. Um,
Mhm,
but a lot of times, in general, I'll start with that Staedtler pencil, that base pencil that gives me some really just kind of solid gray tones, and it acts kind of like an underpainting.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and then, yeah, I'll start building up with the black wings
mhm.
and adding details with, the, mechanical pencils that I have.
Mhm.
And then, kind of a little bit of a back and forth, it just depends.
It seems
Um,
like that type of, drawing with pencil is more precise. Would you define it that way? Then, like, painting is a little bit of sloshiness to it that it feels like graphite doesn't have quite in the same way. Or am I misinterpreting
yes.
it?
No, it there well, I guess it depends on what you're drawing and how you're drawing,
Mhm.
but there's definitely a level of patience. You've got to have a lot of patience with graphite.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of patience because it is about building up layers and
Mhm.
having a soft hand. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, with paint, it's yeah, there is kind of a smushiness to it in a way.
Yeah.
No, that I mean
I
that's
mean, the
no
sketch can
that
be a lot sketchier, actually. Like, the sketch doesn't have to
yes,
be as well defined because you kind of it's almost like carving something out of stone or something. It's like
yes,
you're working it, whereas with this, the drawing has to be pretty set, I would guess.
yes, yes. And I am one of those people. I like to have kind of I like to have the line drawing
Mhm.
down. If I'm sketching, I don't worry about that. But if I'm working on a larger piece, then I like having basically it all mapped out. And
Do
then I
you
start going in.
do you ever use tracing paper, or do you ever use a light table? Do you ever scan stuff in and then, like, after you've done the underdrawing, then trace it again?
I do, yes. Sometimes okay, so I have a piece that is, an elf, and it's got all these ferns
I've
around
seen that
her.
piece, yes.
Yes, yeah.
We can even post it
She
in the Patreon so people can see.
yeah, that'll be a good idea. She started off I did some kind of preliminary sketches on paper of just, her face. It's actually my daughter was the model for that. And then but when I came time to actually do the big drawing, I actually went into Photoshop and sketched it all out, sketched each of those ferns on a different layer
Mhm,
so that then I could move them around.
mhm. Which is kind of how people used to use tracing paper.
Oh, well, exactly. It
Mhm.
basically is. And so that I could get the composition, the way I wanted it. I'd move a fern a little bit and then I'd sit back. And then, move it again.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and then once I had that where I wanted it, I actually printed it on 13 by 19 paper. And I used my light box to then trace it onto my arches paper.
Mhm,
And then I went from there. Yeah.
mhm,
But it was basically, yeah, it was just the line art. It was just really kind of basic line art
mhm,
on the computer. And then I had to go in and, go over that with the pencil. But I always find things that I tweak when I do that. So there's a
mhm.
little bit of difference between that digital sketch
Of
and what
course, yeah.
actually ended up on the paper. Um, but yeah, that's I do that with a lot of things. Sometimes though, a lot of my still lifes, the things with stones and feathers, I draw that right onto the paper.
Mhm.
It's just a one and
Just the
go.
by the nature of it, the organic nature of it, it doesn't it's a different thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's a lot of those still lifes are objects that I actually have in my
Mhm,
studio. So I
mhm.
have a huge collection of stones and I mean, I've got antique keys, I've got so many things. I've got crystals, I've got little pieces of bark, lichen, beehives. I mean, I
That's
have
really
all
cool.
the yeah, I have all these and a lot of these things I collect on my hikes. Um, so I have them here in front of me. And so I set them up and can draw from them. And a lot of times I'll draw from them or I'll also take a photo of what I've set up because with my little black cat,
Mhm. Yes, yes,
it's
we understand.
yes, it can be hard to leave out like things like that if I'm drawing still life stuff because yeah, she's very
Mhm,
interested. Um but yeah, it's a lot easier, but other things with, like especially that piece with my daughter, um, it was inspired by a photograph, that a friend of hers had taken in Seattle,
mhm,
and then I kind of adapted that in
mm,
my own way. Um, so, that's yeah, there's definitely kind of a difference between the pieces where I've got them right here in my hand
mhm,
and stuff that is more kind of based on reference photos and imagination and, you
mhm,
know,
mhm.
the way I have to adapt it.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So this is I guess a good time to mention. So you did a piece for the Hannibal fan art book. How did you get involved in the
Yes.
Fannibal community and doing that piece? I love the word Fannibal. It's one of my favorite words I
It
think ever.
is. It is. It's wonderful. Um, I kind of fell into that community, and it's one of the best things that has happened to me in recent years is finding these wonderful groups of people. I had actually in I think it was November 2020. Yeah. I finished a small drawing of a teacup,
Mhm.
with the kintsugi, the
Mhm.
gold,
I remember the
you know?
illustration, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize at the time that that was Hannibal art.
Oh, really?
Yes, there is a teacup, kind of oh gosh, what is the word I wanna use? There's this it's a metaphor basically
Mhm.
throughout the show about, dropping a teacup and wishing it would come back together.
Mhm. Mhm.
And during 2020, with the pandemic and my mother recovering from cancer, I really identified with that. Like, I had always loved the show, but, like, that started having a new meaning for me.
Mhm.
This teacup, and being damaged, but still being able to come back together and still being
Mhm.
a beautiful thing. So I made this teacup drawing, um, and I actually have these teacups.
Oh,
So
yeah?
the
Oh, so
yeah, yeah.
it was like one of your still lifes, but
It was, yes, it was like a still life, and at the time, I actually just intended it to be kind of a study,
mhm.
because the teacups have a beautiful filigree design
Mhm.
on them, and I thought, I wonder if I could draw that, I wonder if I could pull that off with graphite. Um, and I thought, this is something I'm kind of inspired by, it's something that I love, and it'll be fun,
Mhm.
and I never expected it to lead to where it did, um, because I made this drawing and initially I posted it online, and I was not a part of the fandom then,
Uh-huh.
but all of my wonderful friends that I've made through conventions really, they saw the message that I was personally identifying with, and
Yes.
they identified with it as well, and, it was such a wonderful gift that so many people saw this and knew what I was saying,
Mhm.
you know? Well, then, I guess it was about a couple months later, I ended up sharing it with the Fanable community, and I was kind of on the fringes of it. I was a lurker, as they say. 'Cause I don't typically join fandoms. I mean, I have a lot of things I love,
Mhm. But you're not part
but
of the yeah.
no, and anybody that knows me knows that, yeah, I don't really talk about TV shows and books and things, stuff like that online, but I love them. I mean,
Mhm.
I love all that stuff too. I'll talk about it with my friends. So, but I was like, I don't know, something shifted around that time and I decided to share it with them. And I started connecting with some people that are still, I'm very close to actually. I've made a wonderful dear friend who is a real friend. We've met. I'm actually going to see her. We're going to meet up in Seattle next month.
Oh, how wonderful.
Um, yeah, yeah, but that all just sort of another domino,
Mhm.
innocently sharing this piece of art I made, and then I kind of got swept up into this amazing community of people. And yeah, it's I don't know. I still look back and I'm kind of amazed that it happened and how it happened. And yeah, I've made some really good connections, in this community, and along the way, I guess it was in early 2021, I saw a post on Twitter from Printed in Blood,
Mhm.
this publisher, and they've done a lot of books, Halloween, and there's a Bernie Wrightson book that they've done.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw that they were going to do a Hannibal book, and they put out the call. And I thought, and I really only had a few months to kind of think about this and do it. And in fact, what ended up happening was about 2 weeks before the deadline, I trashed what I had been working on.
Oh my gosh, you just threw it away?
I threw it away.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I threw it away
Mhm.
and started over,
Uh-huh.
and then it all just seemed to click. And
Sometimes that is how it works.
yeah, it's just sometimes it's a part of the process. And so, I sent it in and kept my fingers crossed, and then in October, I found out that yes, I had made it into the book. Um, so that's been wild. Really wild. Yeah, my art was featured on the website, The Nerdist.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and Brian Fuller, the creator of the show, had shared it, and yeah, it was a crazy time.
And what do you think I mean, many shows have fandoms. Is this show
Yeah.
have an unusually large fandom, or is this
It has the most resilient fandom I think I've ever seen. And it's not to say that it's perfect, because, people are people.
Mhm.
And all fandoms, I think, have their struggles.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, it's just a given. But I will say that this is one of the most supportive fandoms I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And that was part of why I decided, I was like, well, maybe I can be a part of this and enjoy this show that I find aesthetically beautiful,
Mhm.
um, with beautiful writing. I mean, the whole
Mhm.
show is a work of art.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
the dialogue, the metaphors, visually, the cinematography, it's just absolutely stunning. And
Mhm.
then you get to the relationships of the characters. Um, and and it's still going.
Mhm.
10, it's been 10
Since
years.
since the show was on the air? Oh, interesting. But it was taken off the
Yes.
air. Was it ended because they didn't think there was enough interest, or is it just one of those random things? Or maybe it's good that they ended it after
You
a
know,
couple of years. Was it 3 or
it's a
4 seasons?
it was 3 seasons, and it's amazing, honestly, that it was on air at all.
Mhm.
I mean, this was on NBC.
Oh, really? It was on NBC. Okay.
Yes. So, yeah, it's amazing that it got past, the various, censors and things. I mean, it's just,
Mhm.
and they did have to do things, to like basically make it acceptable.
Yes.
But even that though, it's like,
They
wow,
pushed the boundaries.
they pushed the boundaries. And I think at the time it wasn't as appreciated,
Mhm.
which happens a lot,
It happens a
you
lot with
know.
shows because people don't find them when they're there, or and it's on
They
Hulu,
don't.
so people can
It
watch it,
is.
which
Yes,
is
it is
nice.
on
So if you've
Hulu.
missed it, you can watch the whole thing.
But yeah, it's there. The thing with Hannibal is there's, I think, a lot of, I guess, overlap in the things that I love and I enjoy
Mhm.
aesthetically.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of there's pieces of my art that, while they're not Hannibal art,
Mhm.
they're not fan art, there's something in there that I think appeals to that fandom,
Oh,
as
definitely.
fans.
Mhm.
And speaking as a fan, because it's those things that I also love. And so, yeah, there's a lot of overlap. I mean, I've got bones and creepy things in here.
So it all sort of aligns. And it sounds like, so
Yes.
do you meet with people like at different conventions? Is there like a meetup, say at Dragon Con or something like that?
There is actually, we do the last 2 years, we have had a Fanable dinner
Oh, nice.
on Friday night, yes, at Dragon Con. We tend to go off-site a little bit to get away from the masses.
Yes, because it's a
Um,
huge convention.
oh, it is. It's
One of the
absolutely
biggest, I believe.
enormous. Yes, it's absolutely enormous. Pre-COVID, I think we had gotten up to 85K. Yeah, huge.
Hmm. That's
But yeah,
amazing.
we meet up there, and other Fanables meet up at other
Hmm.
various conventions, and then a few of us are, actual friends.
That's
And
really nice.
so yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's really cool. It's kind of neat how your journey has led there. And we probably should wrap it up because I think we're getting it.
Yeah.
I haven't been keeping exact track of the time, but what are you working on now? What is your, I mean, you're doing a lot with your Patreon, and this is probably a good reason to share your socials as well.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, my Patreon, you can see basically all the behind the scenes stuff.
Hmm.
And that's patreon.com/makepeaceart. Um, and right now I'm actually working on a Hannibal inspired piece.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes, yes. I mean, I've already shared a little bit of it here and there, but basically there's a creature in the show that's called a raven stag. And I mean, that's just it's a stag, and it's with raven feathers.
Oh,
And
that
so,
sounds right up your alley.
well, see, exactly. Anybody that knows me is going to be like, "Oh yeah, they saw this coming." Um so while it is Hannibal inspired, it's also kind of my own
Hmm.
interpretation. And that's going to be a little bit of a spookier piece. But I also have some new still lifes in the work that are kind of also inspired by that, with antlers and crow feathers, and got various things going on. But yeah, all the behind the scenes stuff on basically what I'm working on now, what I'm going to be working on, that's all on Patreon. But you can find me online at amandamakepeace.com. And I'm on Instagram and the dumpster fire that is Twitter at Amanda Makepeace. And you can find me on Facebook pretty easily too, just by searching for me. I mean, Makepeace is a fairly unique name.
It is,
Um,
yes.
yes, yes, it is really my name. I get asked that a lot. Um, but yeah, so it's pretty easy to find me online.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been so fun. It's been a while because we were on the artist retreat a couple of years ago before
Yes,
the pandemic. So,
yes,
and we
I
keep hoping there
know.
will be another one, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. But
No, I
maybe
don't
one
think
day.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe one day.
I would love to do that again. So, but it was great to see you and talk
Yeah,
to you.
always great to
And
talk to you.
yeah,
And thanks so much.
you're welcome.